Greetings and welcome to Austin, Texas Gardening. Today I'm doing a short part 2 video on how I built this French drain here and its performance over the past 10 months to fix drainage issues over the dense clay soil in my backyard. So let's get started. It's still raining out here today. We've had 2 inches of rain over the past 24 hours and it's really fitting the occasion. Today's Friday, April the 7th. And it's not any Friday, it's Good Friday. And so with all this rain coming in, today we're going to be taking a look at my French drain, which I installed 10 months ago, discussing its performance and just some of my general thoughts on building this French drain and installing it here in my backyard. So, as I mentioned, today is Good Friday. The rain really does fit the occasion. It's cold, it's wet, it's the middle of spring, and I really like Good Friday. Good Friday is one of my favorite holidays. As a Christian, I feel like it's one of the last hallmarkified or unhallmarkified holidays, where Good Friday is a day where Christians just look upon Christ crucified. It's a day of mourning. It's a day where we observe Christ, the Lamb of the world, taking away our sin. That is, taking it into the grave. And so stormy, rainy days fit the occasion. And today we're going to be taking a look at this French drain. If you haven't seen my first video on installing this French drain, I'd highly recommend you go watch it. I had built this French drain last summer because all of the rain had been really inundating my peach trees here. I have these 2 Texas Prince peach trees, and now that it's been 10 months having installed the drain, they're doing really healthy. They've got fruit, they've got leaves, they've got new growth, and I think my French drain really helped to bring them to the current state that they're at. So there were 3 trees here. One of them is dead, and the tree that died was right over there in the bluebonnet patches. You can see this tree is not dead. It looks great. It's got healthy fruit on it, and we're excited for peaches this spring. But in my first video, I was demonstrating that all of these trees were heavily overwatered because without this French drain, all the water from my neighbors' yards drains through my neighborhood. And the tree that was over here that is now dead had root rot. Its roots were just heavily waterlogged, and then after the drought that we had this summer, which followed, it died. It just couldn't handle all of the heavy overwatering and then drought. And so, but of the 2 trees that are left, I think they're doing really good. And so I think this drain, I can best demonstrate what I'm referring to with regard to the overwatering by getting up in my bedroom window up there. So let's take a better look. So I thought the view from my bedroom really paints this picture best. This is my backyard, and you can really see the builder grade here. They had designed it to drain the water from my backyard, from my neighbors' backyards, from the north here and the west here. About 8 lots of water run directly through my backyard. And so all the Roundup, all the dandelion seeds, everything, the dog poop, all of that drains directly through my backyard. And it is causing an issue for my peach trees, even some of the in-ground plants that I've placed along the northern border of my backyard, I feel have been getting fallout from Roundup. And so this French drain really does a great job at capturing a lot of that water. It can't get everything. Some of the water, of course, comes kind of this way, but really, when my backyard did not have this French drain, it would have 2 inches of standing water in it after a rain like this. And I mean, the water would be, between the doghouse and this little whiskey barrel here, this whole area would just be soaked. I would find water collecting around that fire pit, which you can see is totally dry right now. And the one place there isn't water, or rather there is water, is down here at the base of my French drain. So let's get a better look at that. So I want to revisit the anatomy of the French drain real quick. I know I'd mentioned there's a puddle of water over there we're going to look at and talk about. But I first want to just talk about how the French drain has held up over the last 10 months. So when I built this drain, I put a piece of corrugated pipe in the ground, and this piece of pipe has a little useless intake cap here. And the pipe is wrapped in a soil separator underneath all of this granite, and it has been doing an excellent job of draining water. That doesn't mean I assembled it in a way that was reasonable or in the best way possible. So this intake cap isn't super useful. I've been thinking about just tying this off and burying it under the granite. It is definitely catching the water, but most of the water, I'd say 99% of the water that's caught, comes in by just flowing through my neighbor's yard naturally downhill into the drain as it runs towards the exit. But this intake cap really doesn't do anything, so I just wanted to point that out. As far as grass growing into the drain, there is definitely some of that happening. I don't edge over here a ton because, this is loose granite. I don't want to kick this up, and I really don't think it's a big deal if grass grows in the drain. The grass obviously is incentivized to grow in the drain because there's plenty of water in it, or at least in the southern parts of it that are at a lower elevation. But as I've explained many times, the water moves downhill. It's got about 1 inch grade per 10 feet, and it all collects right about here. So some of the water kind of drains onto my neighbor's side of the fence, but it really doesn't use this pop-up cap either. Obviously, the grade isn't significant enough. If I had like a 2-foot grade up that way, maybe a 1 foot, or even an 8-inch as opposed to a 4-inch, this pop-up cap might work. But as it is, the water kind of pools here, and it is draining. There's still a downhill gradient that goes this way towards the fence. And so the number one comment I've had about this French drain that I want to address in this video is why I didn't build the French drain out to the curb. The reason is because that right there is my fiber line, which runs along the side of my house. And you can't tell here, but it runs from this point there into the middle of the section between the two of our houses. So when I open my gate, this pile of weeds here is actually the same pile of clay soil that I placed here after I finished constructing the drain. But I'm opening this area to demonstrate that the water really... So I had to shut the gate real quick because there was too much wind, but I was just explaining the French drain is really draining into this alley. It is for sure pooling in the bottom of that catch basin, but there's a ton of water that likewise collects here, and we really don't have standing water in our French drain catch basin for more than, maybe 24 hours after it rains, which I will definitely take over it being throughout the whole yard. So we still have the water here. I'm okay with that. Obviously, I just want to acknowledge that if I had built this French drain to the curb, this would drain better. It's been probably the most frequent comment, and as a result, what happens is when this water collects too much here, it does flood back into my yard. Now, when I say flood, I'm going to walk around for a minute and show you what I mean by flood. So last year, we'd have water up to my ankles. There is still some standing water here. The standing water, however, has been diverted to places where I'm okay with it. A little bit of a puddle here, but around our fire pit, for the most part, it's pretty dry around here. It's muddy, of course, because it's still actively raining, but what there isn't is, huge amounts of standing water. Like, yes, there's this here, but around our fruit trees, especially like if I go back over here where there was a ton of standing water, we have well draining basins of our fruit trees. This area, which was entirely flooded, it's probably before the drain was put in, this is where most of the water would come through and run right here. It's still very dry. And so I don't want to say that this French drain has fixed all the problems in my backyard. I'm just generally pointing out that I was trying to be sensitive to build the drain in places where I knew there wasn't utility lines, power, internet, or anything like that. Obviously, I could have tried to plan around that, but I didn't really feel it was necessary. As I've installed the drain, like I said, it's not every single part of my yard, but having just gotten 2 inches of rain, I don't find a couple of puddles to be a failure with regards to draining. The amount of mosquitoes that disappeared from my yard after this drain was complete was really a night and day difference, and I'm very pleased with the way it turned out. Even though this catch basin still isn't draining perfectly, I think it's draining well enough to be a good addition to our backyard. So I just wanted to keep this video short. Just discussing the drain over the past 10 months and the way that it's performed. I'm very satisfied with it. I think my peach trees are that much better for having had it installed. Obviously, I'm very excited to do a backyard orchard, backyard garden tour showcasing all the fruit and vegetables that I'm growing, so stay tuned for that. I'm planning on filming a video on Easter Sunday. It's just the only day without wind. All the videos I make are, if I'm outside, it's because it's not very windy. And today it's not very windy for a storm. So there's like 5 miles per hour of wind right now, but this whole spring has been 20 miles per hour wind constantly. I just can't film. And so I have this really cool harvest video and planting my summer garden, all sorts of neat things that we're going to be doing here in my backyard gardening space. So do stay tuned. Keep an eye out for the spring garden tour. Should be uploaded on Easter Sunday, actually. That's just the best time that I had to film. But I hope you and yours have a blessed Easter weekend. My family is going to go visit the Austin Stone for their Good Friday service here in a couple of hours. And so, I just hope you guys have an opportunity to observe the holiday and prepare for your spring gardening project. So thank you for watching the video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I'd be happy to do another update video to answer any ongoing questions that people might have. So thank you again for watching Austin, Texas Gardening.